Thank you all for being here with me today. Um, I wanted to continue sort of in the vein of last week's practice for those who were here, just sort of thinking about our mindset and how we're dealing with the uniqueness of our situation at the moment and a year in and looking forward to the future. And so, what sort of came to me today was the idea of being playful and creating more happiness in the world. It's really easy with so many things going on, not just the reality of the pandemic and how it's affected us, but beyond that, the just atrocious realities of um, race-based issues and violence that we experienced this year. Most recently, the shooting in Atlanta. I mean, there's just so many things for us to be frustrated with and fearful of, really. And it's a conscious practice, just like yoga is a conscious practice. It's a conscious practice every day to choose joy and hope and to continue working to offer hope and joy to the rest of the world. And so that's what I was sort of thinking about today in designing this practice. And so the theme is play. And we'll sort of play around with poses and with our own mindsets as we move through the practice, and then get to our relaxation time at the end and listen to a mantra that I love, all about offering happiness back out into the world. So I hope it will be a meaningful practice for you all, and we'll jump right in. So we're going to make our way into child's pose, Balasana, and I'm going to stay facing the camera, but certainly you can be on your mat side to side or long ways. Is probably what makes the most sense. But coming into child's pose, I want you to go ahead and bring your big toes to touch and then take your knees out nice and wide. So if you are on your mat this way, you want your knees at least touching the sides of your mat, and depending on if your legs are longer, they may even be slightly wider than that. But big toes touch, knees wide, and then you're just going to fold forward into the space between your knees and thighs. And begin to breathe here. So we're going to find Ujjayi breath to begin the practice today. And this is ocean breath, a breath with real deep sound quality. And so I want you to take a moment. Everyone's mic is muted except for mine, but I want you to imagine hearing the sound of all of us together breathing deeply and fully. And we do Ujjayi by gently constricting the throat muscles so that as the breath passes over, you hear that gentle rattling sound like you've held a conch shell up to your ear and are listening to the sound of the ocean waves. So breathe in through the nose, and as the breath comes over, we hear that sound. Exhale. We hear an even deeper, more rich breath sound. Just continue breathing like that and hearing your breath. And notice what adding the sensation of sound, of hearing, does to something that is normally a physical activity that we just feel. Now we've added the depth of sound component to our breathing. So just keep inhaling over the nose, exhaling out through the nose, and see if you can make your breath a little deeper, a little more full, a little slower and longer than might normally be your breath throughout the day. You're going to go ahead and take 2 more of those breaths, and maybe even play with your breath a little these last 2 times and try pausing at the very top of the inhale and then at the very bottom of the exhale. It's not holding the breath so much as it's just playing around with the space that happens between the inhale and the exhale. So let's take 1 more together and try to pause for a count of 3. Inhale, pause, 2, 3, exhale. Pause. 2, 3. One more time. Inhale. And exhale. A neutral exhale. Let it all go. Maybe even a sigh through the mouth. So from here, we're going to begin our practice of play with a breath that is just totally silly, and everyone's got their camera off so you can feel totally comfortable doing this. I'll be the only one visibly making a wonderful fool of myself. This is lion's breath, and just a fun way to get started, but it also has a really beneficial aspect, and that is it wakes the body. It wakes the body and sends energy forward up into our head, into our mind, sort of clearing out any cobwebs that we might feel. And there's a posture associated with lion's breath called lion's pose. So from your child's pose, go ahead and come up, and we're going to take lion's pose, and then we'll be shifting back and forth between child's pose and lion's pose for a few breaths. So we're going to be in tabletop position with the toes curled under and sort of sitting your hips back, not to touch your heels, but just so you feel a little weight in your toes. And then we're going to move the arms sort of slightly in front of the shoulders. And I like to come high on my fingertips. Lion's pose is sort of like a lion roaring and getting ready to pounce. And so I like to be up on the fingertips. You can also be flat on your palms. Pull your shoulders away from your ears and just lift your heart forward. So this is sort of like a funky cow pose when we do cat and cow. So we're going to come high here into the posture. We're going to drop our head forward, take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, we're going to lift the chin up. We're going to stick your tongue as far out as you can, and we're going to exhale, roaring that sound as the breath leaves. So I'll demonstrate one time here for you. You're going to inhale, head down, and then exhale, lift the chin, and exhale over the throat with the tongue stuck way out. If you're really feeling playful today, you can take your eyes and look up at the space between your eyebrows, kind of rolling your eyes upward. And that's the true textbook version of lion's pose. So what we're going to do now is release lions and sit back into child's pose. And we're going to take 3 cycles here. Inhale, exhale in child's. Neutral breath. Then we're going to rise into our lion's pose. Inhale, chin to chest. Exhale, lion's breath. Release, sit back, child's pose. We'll do 2 more just like that. Inhale, exhale, neutral breath. Rise into lion's pose. Inhale, chin to chest. Exhale, lion's breath. Release. Last time, sit back, child's pose, neutral breath. Inhale, exhale. Rise into your lion's pose one more time. Inhale, chin to chest. Exhale, lion's breath. And release. Coming back to a neutral tabletop position. Hands underneath your shoulders, knees underneath your hips, flat palm on the floor, and then press into the tops of your feet and stretch the ankles one last time here. So we're going to begin with thread the needle. And one of the challenges of being on camera is that I only get to show you one side at a time. So I'm going to try to show you the side I think will be most beneficial in case you need to glance at the camera and see what's happening. But also, this practice is all about play. And so if you end up doing something different than me, that's okay. If you're having fun and it feels good in your body, then I hope this practice will be meaningful regardless. So we're going to take thread the needle pose, beginning by placing the right hand flat and lifting the left hand up towards the sky or ceiling, whatever is above you. Maybe even turn your gaze and look up at your thumb. Spread your palm like you were going to reach up to the clouds or to the light, whatever is above you. Open your heart, and then on your next exhale, we're going to thread the needle. That means the needle of your left hand goes behind the right wrist, and you're going to come down shoulder, cheek, temple on the left side to the floor. Now, this may feel good to you. You should be feeling a little stretch in your left shoulder, and this is great. You can stay here with your right palm flat. If you want, you can come up onto right fingertips and walk your right arm out.
See how that feels. And because we're doing playful things today, if you want to challenge yourself just a little bit, maybe gently shift your weight to the left, just slightly, and try extending your right leg behind you, curling the toes under and pressing down through your heel. If you want to balance a little bit more, walk that right hand towards the front end of your mat, getting a little shoulder stretch on both shoulders, and just opening into a sort of a funky thread the needle here. One more breath, whatever yours looks like. You don't have to go with me. You can stay where you are. When you're ready, release your hand first down for support. Take your knee down if you lifted the leg. Press yourself back up. Tabletop position. We'll just simply switch to the other side. So when you're ready, left hand underneath your shoulder, right hand sweeps up, open your heart, look at your thumb so that you're not hyperextending your shoulder. As long as you can see your thumb, you're good to go. And then spread those fingers, reach up towards the ceiling. Deep breath in, and as you exhale, thread the needle. Right hand goes down behind left wrist, and we lower shoulder, cheek, temple to the floor. Now again, you can keep your left palm flat. You can extend the hand out at about 10 o'clock. When you're ready, if you're ready, maybe add the extended left leg, curling the toes under and pressing back through your heel. So your choice there in how you want to play with this posture. We want to feel the stretch on the outer right shoulder. That's the base movement of the pose. But then from there, we can start to add these other elements. Finally, if you wish, maybe extend that left hand more towards the front end of your mat and breathe into the extension of the left side body. Don't lose your ujjayi. Whenever you notice that you can't hear your breath, come back to that ocean sound. Try to keep it flowing throughout the whole practice. One more breath. And as you release, hand comes back to center. Release the knee if you took it up. And find tabletop position one last time. Let's just take one big cat pose, rounding the back, arching chin to chest, tuck the tailbone under to stretch out the shoulders and neck. And release. So you can just pause here with me for a moment. I'm going to do a quick demonstration so that you don't have to try to figure out what I'm talking about, and then we'll move on. So we're going to take a squat here, a yoga squat called malasana or garland pose. And what's important is that your heels be resting on something. So I have a throw pillow off of my sofa that's got a little bit of cushion, so this would be great. If you don't have this, but you're on a yoga mat, you can walk to the back end of your mat and just roll up the mat, let's say about a quarter of the way to create a cushion, a roll. That's actually what I'm going to use. And if you don't have any of the above, just be mindful of your squat, and I'll explain a little bit about the knee there. So if you've got something to put your heels on, like I said, I'm going to use my mat rolled up. So my heels are on the roll. The ball of my foot is flat on the floor. You can be on your pillow, a folded beach towel, whatever works best for you. When you're ready, we're going to bend the knees and use the hands for support as we challenge our balance to come down into a squat. Now, if you don't have a prop and your heels are sort of floating off the floor like mine are right now, that's okay. It just means you're going to put a little bit of stress on the knee, and we want to be gentle with that. So if you're feeling that, go ahead and release yourself back into either a seated position or a kneeling position, but we're going to be here for just a couple of breaths. If you are able to press your heels into the floor and feel a release on your lumbar spine, that's the work we want in malasana, garland pose. You can extend your arms for a counterbalance if you need help with that. You can bring your palms to touch and use your elbows to press your knees back. That's going to give you a little hip opening. And for those who are feeling really fun today, want to be really playful, if you've got arm balancing in your practice, maybe you drop your hands to the floor and play around with crow pose for just a couple of breaths. Wherever you are in this moment, Just take a big smile on your face, a couple of deep breaths, and don't forget that we're playing. If you're just sitting in garland pose, send your tailbone down, lift up through the crown of your head, feel that lengthening and stretching, and then we're all going to come out in just a moment. Now, the way we're going to leave here, if you're in garland pose, is you're going to shift your weight forward, put your hands on the floor, and then press yourself up to standing. If you were in some other variation, find your way to a standing forward fold in the easiest way for you to get there. So we'll all end up here in a standing forward bend, feet about hips distance apart. You can either grab your elbows and let your head hang in the space created by your arms. You can let your arms dangle. If it's more comfortable for you to place your hands on your hips, whatever feels best for you in this moment, we're just going to fold here and say hello to the backs of our legs as they begin to wake and warm up for this practice. 2 big breaths in your forward fold. After your second exhale, bend your knees, release your arms if they were anywhere other than dangling, and then start to roll up to standing, 1 vertebrae at a time, stacking until you roll all the way up to stand. And before we go anywhere else, roll your shoulders up to your ears and then hug them down the back. Add Ujjayi breath to this. Inhale, exhale. 1 more, inhale, exhale. And let it all go. So I'm going to make my way to the front end of my mat. If you're on a mat, join me here. If you're not on a mat, find yourself at the front end of your space so you have room to extend your body behind where you're standing. We're going to flow through a few rounds of Surya Namaskar, the sun salutation. One of my other challenges and opportunities with teaching virtually like this is I don't necessarily know everyone's practice. So if you're really familiar with Surya Namaskar, you can ignore my generous and copious cues the first time through. But for those who might not be as familiar, I'll try to really cue each piece to explain what creates this millennial-old flow of yoga postures. So we're going to take 3 rounds, and the purpose of Surya Namaskar, first and foremost, is to wake and warm the entire body. And that's what we want to do here. So finding yourself at the front of your space, feet underneath your hips, you're going to look down and check out the outer edges of your feet, the pinky toes. They want to be parallel. You may have a tendency when you stand without even realizing it to turn your feet more out or more in. And so take this opportunity to find what square feels like. And it may not feel great. It may just feel a little strange to you. That's okay. Sit with that feeling for a moment and see what it does in the rest of your body. Energize up through your legs, but don't lock your knees. We never ever in yoga want to lock out the knee joint. So keep a nice soft bend. When we talk about straightening and energizing the legs, it's the muscles, not the joints, doing that work. Place 1 hand on your sacrum, that flat part above your tailbone. Place 1 hand on your waistline in the front, and press your hands in towards one another in the middle of your body, and notice how your pelvis gently neutralizes. We want to try to hold on to that pelvic neutrality here. When you think you've got the sensation down, release your hands and try to hold on to that pelvic tilt. Turn your palms to the front of your space. That's going to gently rotate your shoulder blades inward and create a more open upper chest and collarbone area. And then finally, lift your ears right over top of your shoulders and hips and ankles, and soften your eyes to close. This is Tadasana, mountain pose, and should be some of the most complete breathing that you do all day. So just breathe here for a moment. So as we breathe, inhaling and exhaling, Notice the fullness that exists in your lungs and in your torso by creating this anatomical centeredness. Then when you are ready, bring your palms together at your heart. Nothing else moves, but this is samasthitihi, equal standing balance. This is like the yogic version of the military call to attention. We come here as a reminder to reset and get ready for whatever is next. And this gesture specifically is about gratitude. So take a moment and think of at least one thing that right now you're grateful for. And on your inhale, sweep your arms around and up. Imagine you had a beach ball in your hands and you were going to touch whatever was above you with the beach ball. Ceiling, sky, whatever it is, press your beach ball to upwards. And then on your exhale, we're going to hinge and fold forward over your legs. It's like a swan dive, a really graceful and full motion into a standing forward fold. Shake your head a little yes and a little no. Relax your neck and jaw. Then bend your knees, place your hands on the floor, and step your feet back behind you. For my yogis who know full plank, you can stay here, but I'd like everyone else to drop your knees to the floor and point your toes to the ceiling. Now notice my hips. They're not sticking out in the back, and they're not sagging forward, but I've got them right in line with my knees and my shoulders. This is kneeling plank position, toes point up. When you're ready, take a deep breath in, then hug your elbows down at your sides as we lower to the floor. My shoulders, hips are all going to touch at the same time. Then release your toes to the mat. Shift your hands about 6 inches out in front of you, and then press your heart up off the floor, coming into cobra pose. So shoulders roll down the back, heart lifts and moves forward, soft neck, soft jaw. On your next exhale, release your whole front body to the earth. Bring your hands back underneath your shoulders. Point your toes up to the ceiling. We're going to reverse our push-up. So just like we came down, shoulders and hips touching at the same time, we're going to lift up with shoulders and hips still in line with one another. Deep breath in. Exhale, press up to your kneeling plank. Curl your toes under on the floor and unwind your legs, coming into downward facing dog. Shake your head yes and no, and say hello to our first down dog of the practice. Go ahead and start to pedal out your feet, alternately bending one knee and then the other, like you were walking on a Stairmaster. Spread your shoulders across your back and gently hug your triceps towards your toes. You can keep pedaling as long as that feels good. If you want to bring your legs to stillness, imagine sending your tailbone high towards the ceiling or sky above you, and then sending your heels down towards the earth. Let those rubber bands on the backs of your legs gently lengthen. One more big breath here. Looking forward at the space between your hands, you're going to find your feet there. You can hop, you can walk, whatever gets your feet into that space. And we'll meet at the front end of the mat, folding forward over your legs once more into Uttanasana, standing forward fold. This time, rather than rolling up to standing, we're going to activate the belly muscles, spread the arms out like wings, and press up through a flat back. Palms touch overhead and come down to your heart, returning to samasthitihi, that call to attention, and that reminder of gratitude. What's another thing that you're grateful for today? We're going to do 2 more rounds just like that, less of me talking and more of us flowing together. So when you're ready, inhale, arms reach up. Exhale, hinge and fold. Uttanasana, standing forward bend. Bend knees, hands to the earth, step back, your plank. Inhale, plank. Exhale, lower to the floor. Release the toes. Hands shift forward. Inhale, cobra, lift the heart. Exhale, forehead to the floor. Point toes up, hands under shoulders. On your exhale, push up. Release the toes and unwind the legs, down dog. 3 breaths here in downward facing dog. Looking forward, find your feet in the space between your hands, however you like to get there. And when you've reached the front end of your mat, fold forward, Uttanasana once more. Spread the arms out like wings. Inhale, rise through a flat back to stand, palms touch. Bring it to the heart, Samastitihi. We're going to take one more round just like that. Maybe pick the pace up just a little bit. If that was a good tempo for you, you can slow it down and just meet us back here when you're ready. Inhale, arms sweep up. Exhale, hinge and fold. Hands to the earth, step back plank. Inhale, plank. Exhale to the floor. Inhale, cobra. Exhale, release. Inhale, exhale, push up. Take it back down, dog, 3 breaths. Feet to the front of your mat. Forward fold. Reverse swan dive to stand. Inhale. Palms touch. Exhale. Samastitihi. Join us back here, whatever tempo and pace you're working at. And just take a moment to be in this centered position. And actually, let's drop the hands back at your sides, palms face forward for mountain pose. Returning to this anatomical symmetry, take a moment and close your eyes and just feel the energy moving through your body. You've just done a waking and warming practice. Notice how your body is responding to that. You might feel your heartbeat slightly quicker. Maybe you feel a little muscle and nerve twinges. Just breathe here. What does it feel like to be fully alive? Palms come back to your heart, Samastitihi. We're going to continue on with a variation on the sun salutation. This is called Sun Salute B. We're going to add a posture here that's going to work the core body just a little bit more and give us a chance to play around with our shoulders. So when you're ready, palms are at the heart. Inhale, arms sweep up just as before. But this time, turn your palms behind you. So this is really going to rotate your shoulders open. And then you're going to bend the knees and sit into an imaginary chair. Now, the first thing you're going to notice, I'm going to leave one arm up, but the first thing you're going to notice is that your knees are going to move forward like mine are doing right now. What we want to do is consciously shift the shins backwards and then sit the hips down. So shins shift back, hips release. Arms are lifted, and so you're going to have a slight tip of your upper body. That's good. From here, we're going to let these quadriceps and thighs do their job and start to fire up. You may start to feel a little heat burning here and in your core, but we're going to take the arms out like wings and then cross left over right for eagle arm. Let your arms twist up. Backs of your hands come to touch. If you were here last week, we did eagle arms in another pose. So we're going to take it here in chair for just a moment. Shoulders drop down away from the ears. Heart lifts. One more breath. Say hello to those quads. Left over right. I'm saying that out loud so I'll remember it when we get to the other side, hopefully. Unwind, stand tall, reach the arms up, and fold forward. Now place your hands on your shins, below your knees, and then press your arms straight to lift you up into a flat back position. Hopefully, if you're looking at me on the screen, you can see this. Your hips may shift way back. Try just bringing them a little more over top of your ankles and say hello to the work in your legs. One more breath here. Release and fold forward. Now you have choices. You can take a rest in child's pose, how we started the practice. You can take a rest in downward facing dog, or you can move through this vinyasa cycle of poses with me. Your choice, make this practice your own. A rest in child's pose, a rest in down dog, or move on with me, hands to the earth, step back plank. You can do kneeling plank like we did before. I'm gonna demo full plank this time. Inhale plank, exhale lower to the mat, upward dog or cobra. Now I shifted forward into upward facing dog. If you're doing cobra, your hips will be on the floor. Take it up and back into downward facing dog. Those of you resting in down dog, we've joined you here now. If you're in child's pose, just keep hanging out there. And then we'll all meet at the front of the mat from whatever version of the poses you took. We'll meet feet in the space between your hands, fold forward, Uttanasana, and reverse swan dive to stand. We'll close out just like we did with Surya Namaskar A here in B. So we've got one more round like that so that we can do our arm position on the other side. When you're ready, arms sweep up, palms rotate backwards, bend the knees and sit, chair pose, Utkatasana. This pose name literally means power or mighty. So take a moment and feel that power radiating from your belly, firing up your legs. Arms out like wings, this time right over left. Backs of your hands to touch, palms to touch, your choice. Shoulders spread wide, heart lifts up. Eagle arms in chair pose. One more big breath. Let it go, stand up tall, arms reach up and fold. Just as before, you've got options. A rest in child's pose, a rest in down dog, or take the vinyasa with me. This time, we're all gonna meet in child's pose at the end. So when you're ready, rest in child's, rest in down dog, or hands to the earth, step back plank, lower to the floor, upward dog or cobra, downward facing dog, when you're ready to release, knees to the edges of your mat, big toes to touch, sit back child's pose, release, relax, and rest. And just give your shoulders a little TLC here by wrapping your arms back towards your toes. That'll relax your shoulders. If your forehead doesn't naturally reach the floor, place a block, a pillow, a towel, whatever you can to bring the floor up to your head. One more nice deep resting breath in child's pose. And then come up to a comfortable seat for just a moment. I'm gonna demo one other thing here so that you all can not try to do a pose and look at the screen at the same time. This next thing is really in the theme of playfulness. It is a challenging posture, so I want to put that out there and say if it doesn't feel right for you, don't try it. I'm not there with you, and so it's always a little daunting to offer something in a virtual setting.
that is a little more challenging, but I want to put that disclaimer out. So this is a variation on down dog that I'm thinking of as a puppy chasing its tail, something that can make them a little crazy looking and dizzy, but it's something that they love. And it's kind of a fun challenge for us as well. So the way this is going to work is we're going to take downward facing dog. And again, I'll just demo really quickly and then walk you through it. We're going to take down dog, but with the hands and feet wider than usual. So I'm going to go to the edges of my mat. Big toes are still on the mat, so I've got a little grippy. And my thumbs are still on the mat, but I've got 4 fingers or 3 fingers off the mat. And the way this is going to work is we start with a one leg down dog. So I'm going to lift my right leg up and extend it behind. So that already adds an element of challenge to my down dog. And I'm going to breathe with that. I can either stay here, or if you want to go to the next phase, I'm going to practice lifting my left hand off the mat and floating it. So now I'm on a bipod, my just right arm and left leg. Now you can stay like this for a couple breaths and then release. Or if you're feeling really playful, you're going to start to bend your knee, bend your elbow, and imagine maybe finding your foot with your hand and lifting your knee up to the ceiling. You are going to notice the weight shifting around in your balance, and you don't want to fall over, so be mindful of that as you breathe. We don't slingshot out of balance poses, but instead we release gently everything to the earth. So hopefully you were able to see that. We'll play on both sides and then come back together in a rest again. So when you're ready, make your way up into downward facing dog and take your feet and hands wider than they normally would be, perhaps to the edges of your mat. If you are a much shorter person, that may be too wide for you. So just be mindful of your own needs there. I'm going to go to the other side for me now, and that can be your first side. So we're going to start with lifting the left leg up to one leg downward facing dog. For those who are familiar with one leg down dog, notice how having the hands and feet wider makes this feel different. If you want to try the balance, maybe try lifting your right hand and breathing there. When you're ready, if you're ready, maybe try bending your knee. Maybe try rotating your elbow back. Maybe try finding your foot. If at any point your balance says, nope, not today, then just stop. Notice how far you got and release it all out. One more breath. Let it all go gently and slowly. Set it down. So go ahead and take the other side if you're playing around with that, whatever version of it you get to or you look like, that's totally fine. And remember, this is about play. There's no one there judging you. Hopefully you're not judging yourself. So what can you do in this moment, making crazy shapes with your body and challenging your arms and legs and core to all work together that can just put a big smile on your face? If you're lifting, be mindful that your balance is constantly having to adjust. And so you're taking care to breathe into that and move slowly and consciously. One more breath wherever you are, and then begin to come out of the posture. We're actually going to meet standing. So whatever way you like to get there, when you're ready, come on up to a standing position and give your knees and your ankles a little chance to relax. Shake your arms out. So I'm going to face the camera, as I said a moment ago, but you're welcome to stay facing the front end of your mat. We're going to take the feet a little closer together than they were before, so slightly inside of your hips width, but we still want those outer edges parallel. And if you can lift your toes, maybe try doing that. It'll totally change how you balance on your feet. When you're ready, sweep your arms up, and we're going to interlace the fingers, all except for the index finger. So this is hard to show on camera, but I've got an interlaced hand, except my index fingers are pointing straight up. Shoulders soften down.
So you look like a candle flame or a rocket ship. We're going to take an inhale over to the left side, meaning the right side of your body will be stretching. You're going to keep everything lifted, but notice that your shoulders don't come up to your ears. I'm demonstrating that now. But now I'm going to release them back into neutral. Notice that space on either side of my head. That's what we want. Take your bend over to the left, right side body stretches. Send your tailbone down. Remember at the beginning of our sun salutations when we had our hands on the waist? That's the same action of the pelvis we want here, neutralizing as we stretch the side body. One more big breath. Come back to center, release your hands, and then flutter your hands down at your sides. Let it all go. Are you still breathing with Ujjayi Pranayama? If not, come back to that. Let's go to the other side. Inhale, arms up. Interlace your fingers, but do the other fingers in front this time. It'll be the one that just feels really weird when you crisscross them. When you're ready, take your bend over to the right. This time, left side of the body is stretching. Soften the tailbone down, lift your heart, stretch to the side. 3 big breaths here. Bring it back up. Just as before, release the hands and flutter them down at your sides. Okay, so we have 2 more standing poses here. And the second of which is another kind of challenging balance today. So this is a practice about pushing our limits just a little bit. We're going to start with triangle pose. So now I will ask you to turn to the long side of your mat if you haven't already done so. And you're going to be standing kind of in the center. You're going to take a step out with your left foot and then a step out with your right foot so that you're in a nice wide leg stance. Your left toes are going to face the short end of your mat. The right toes are going to face the long side of your mat, just like I've got here. And it's not as important that you're doing the same side as me. I know looking at a mirror image can be confusing. Just make sure that when we switch sides, you switch so you do both sides. So we're going to have both legs long. Remember, I said we never lock out the knees. So what I don't want here is to see that front knee locked out, which I'm demonstrating right now. Instead, I'm going to bend it slightly forward. My leg is still straight, but the knee is soft and protected. You're going to open your arms out like wings. And then we're going to bend the elbows, keeping them lifted high, and just barely touch your hips. We're going to keep the hips in this plane of movement, just rocking side to side. We don't want them to protrude forward, and we don't want them to stick out in the back. So we're going to keep them just here in the center. And when you're ready, we're going to begin to lean left elbow towards left toes. Your right side is long. When you feel like you are as far as you can lean without tipping forward, we're going to slide your left hand down to rest on your shin below your kneecap. Now you can keep your right elbow lifted up towards the ceiling with hand on hip. If you want to go a little deeper in this triangle pose, you're going to let your right hand float like a helium-filled balloon overhead. Now that's important that it's soft because often I see in triangle pose people straining to reach up to the ceiling, and what that's going to mean is a hyperextension of this shoulder, and we don't want that. So just let it float nicely. You should be able to wiggle your fingertips at me. Soft. This is triangle pose Trikonasana, and we're breathing here into the stretch all along this right side, even into the hip, and this lifting of the left ribs so they're not collapsing. One more big breath in your triangle. Take a deep breath in, and with a strong core, press yourself up to standing. Now we're going to lift into our balance posture. This is half moon. I've got to shift back slightly because I have a piece of furniture that I will run into if I stay where I was. But nothing else moved, so you don't have to move if you've got room. What's going to happen here is I'm going to bend the back knee and take a little half step in. So I shortened up my stance. My front foot has not moved. I'm going to open those arms like wings again. And I'm going to imagine tipping myself over like I'm doing a slow motion cartwheel until my back leg is kicking out in the back and my hands are floating. And I only want you to give me one full ujjayi breath here. Inhale, exhale, set it down, hands on hips. Turn all your toes towards the long side of your mat. Bend your knees, bow forward for a full deep breath. Roll it up to standing. And we're just going to switch sides. So I'm going to be back in the middle of the mat here. I'm going to turn my right toes towards the short edge, my left toes towards the long edge. This is where I said, if you're backwards with me on sides, just make sure you're doing the opposite of what you did before right now. When you're ready, legs are straight but not locked. Hands on hips, elbows lifted. We're going to tip over, right elbow towards right toes. When you're ready, slide your right hand down to your shin. And then left hand can stay on hip, elbow lifting, or float that hand up like a helium-filled balloon to float overhead. Triangle pose, Trikonasana. Stretches on the left side of the body now into that left outer hip. Shoulders away from ears. Belly is engaged. Your core muscles holding you steady. Take 2 more breaths. Fire up your belly, activate that core. On an exhale, press up to stand. Soften your knees and step your left foot in halfway. Arms out like wings. Tip over like that slow motion cartwheel. Here's where the play comes in. And let your left leg start to lift off the floor, coming into a balance. This is sort of a funky Ardha Chandrasana, half moon pose. 1 full breath. Inhale. Exhale. Set it all down. Come to the center of your mat with your knees close together, hands on your knees, and just give me 3 or 4 circles in each direction. I'm going to stay facing this way so I can see the camera, but you all can turn back to the front of your mat if that works better for you. We're going to come into a toe balance now, and I mentioned this when we did garland pose earlier, but now I want everyone to toe balance. So you can either do this to challenge yourself by balancing on the way down, or if you want, you can put your hands on the floor, bend your knees, and come into your toe balance. The way this will look is your heels are off the floor and your knees are floating. Again, you can do this with hands down, with hands out in front, or with hands at your heart. So make your way into your toe balance. If you're coming down slowly, use your core for control. We'll only be here for 1 breath. Inhale. Exhale. And then use your hands behind you to sit yourself down and fold your right foot underneath, coming heel to hip. So right heel touches left hip. We're going to cross the left ankle over your right knee. Now, I often see when people get into this twist that they're more concerned about crossing, and so they'll end up sort of like I am now with the foot just sort of dangling here. That's actually not what we want. We want the foot flat on the floor. So your twist may actually look like this. Foot flat on the floor, not crossed over the knee. So I want you to find that foot flat on the floor and then walk it around until it tries to lift up. And then you know you've gone too far. So with the the left knee pointed up towards the ceiling, we're going to wrap your right elbow around left knee. So opposite arm and leg. We're going to take the left hand and reach it up towards the ceiling, getting our spine long. And then as you exhale, we're going to sweep the left arm down and around to find the floor behind you with your fingertips and press your heart up into a tall seated twist. This pose is called Matsyendrasana, the Lord of the Fish. Turn your head to the left and look into the leftmost corners of your eyes. Notice your breathing. It's starting to slow, but don't give up on it completely. Keep that ujjayi sound going. On your exhale, release everything to unwind. Release the legs out wide. Sit back and windshield wiper back and forth before we go to the other side for our twist. This time, cross your left leg underneath. So left heel to right hip. Right ankle crosses over. Again, foot needs to be flat on the floor, wherever that is for you. Left arm wraps around your right knee, opposite arm and leg. Right arm reaches up to lengthen the spine. Sweep your arm back behind to find the floor and twist towards your bent knee. Look into the rightmost corners of your eyes as you gently twist the head and neck, and take 2 big breaths here. On your exhale, let it unwind, come back to center. And then we're going to roll back onto the back of your body. So make sure you've got room to do that. If you like special props for your relaxation time, we're not quite there yet, but have them close by, maybe an eye pillow or a blanket, something to rest your head on. So when you're ready, you can hold on to your knees and gently roll yourself back. Once the back of your head is resting on the floor and your shoulders are soft, you're going to walk the feet underneath you and extend your arms down at your sides. We're going to take a deep breath in, drawing your knees to the front of the room. Lift your hips, coming into bridge pose. We're just taking one of these to gently lengthen out the front body. So inhale, lift the hips, hug your knees towards one another and towards the front of your space. And then the sweet magic happens when we lower back down. You're going to pull your tailbone towards your heels and iron your spine out so that by the time your hips reach the floor, you feel every single vertebrae resting on your mat or on the earth. Then you're going to draw the knees into the chest, open the arms like wings out on the floor, and drop your knees over to the right. For a twist here, a reclining twist, melt your left shoulder back towards the floor behind you and maybe take your head gently towards the left side if that feels good for your twist. One more breath, and as you exhale, come back into center. Reset your shoulders on the floor and then take your knees over to the left, melting your right shoulder back towards the mat or the earth beneath you. Gently taking your head and neck into the twist if that feels good. One more breath. On your exhale, come back into center. Release your feet to the mat. You can let your hands come down at your sides, palms up or down. You can let your hands rest on your hips, your belly, your heart, or any combination of the above. And when you're ready, start to walk your legs out in front of you, maybe fully extending them on the mat, or maybe keeping a bend in your knees, which will soften the stress on your low back. Make your way into your Shavasana, corpse pose, our time of relaxation. So as I mentioned, today's practice was all about play. And I hope that you felt that in your body. Maybe you tried something new today that you haven't done before. As I said at the beginning of this practice, cultivating happiness, joy, hope in ourselves allows us to offer that gift out to other people, especially in times when the world is hurting. And so this mantra that I'm going to play during your time of relaxation is one of my favorites. The words in Sanskrit are Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. And the translation is, may all beings everywhere be happy and free. And may the thoughts and actions of our lives, the things that we do on a daily basis, how we think and treat other people, how we think and treat ourselves, may all of that be done in service to happiness and freedom for others. So let go of your breath. You don't need to control it any longer. Just allow it to flow. And hear this mantra as you enjoy a few sweet moments of relaxation.
Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings transcend suffering. May all beings experience great healing. May all beings realize the truth within their heart and be set free. May we heal as one. May we rise as one. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. 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 Loka samasta sukhino
Gently wiggle your fingers and toes. Take a stretch or a twist or whatever your body is asking for to bring you back to this space. When you're ready and fully present once more, make your way up
to a comfortable seated position. As you make your way up to seated, start to circle your head and neck, big circles in each direction, ironing out any last tensions that you may feel. 3 or 4 circles in each direction.
Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu.
We'll take our 3 breaths to close the practice, releasing your hands down at your sides. The first 2 breaths are in through the nose, out through the mouth, and the third breath will be in and out through the nose. Here we go. Inhale, arms sweep up. Big sigh, exhale. Let it all go. One more like that. Inhale. Exhale. Gentle breath in through the nose, palms reach up and touch. Out through the nose, hands to your heart. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. As the wind carries our prayers for earth and all life, may respect and love light our way. May our hearts be filled with compassion for others and for ourselves. May peace increase on earth, and may it begin with me. Namaste.